Certificate in grant writing spring quarter begins April the 3rd, and we're looking forward to it. We do this 2 quarters a year, and last quarter we had a full cohort. Hopefully some people that didn't make it last time are returning this quarter to get in soon, but keeping that in mind, you might want to register as soon as possible. My name is Ellison Jones. I'm an adjunct professor at Western Washington. I also teach at Evergreen, Seattle Central, and through my own company, Spark the Fire. And I've been writing grants for more than 25 years. I have a master's degree in adult education, and I'm a grant reviewer for several foundations and government entities. So I can also give the perspective of what it's like to be on the other side of the table reviewing grants, and can share with you insights into how that works. So this course is an online course with weekly Zoom meetings. All the coursework is online. Canvas is the learning platform that we use, and all the reading is included in the course. So there are no books that you need to buy. I do have some books that I can recommend and do recommend just for your bookshelf, but in terms of the course materials, it's all provided within the course. So we have 8 weekly Zoom meetings. Those happen on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. And during those Zoom meetings, we do case-based and problem-based discussion and just talk about what we're learning in the course. I try to make a lot of time for breakout rooms so people can network, because in my experience of being a grant writer, knowing other grant writers is really critical to being successful. And so you want to have a network around you that you can lean on when you have too many clients and you need to refer some people away, and vice versa. And so the way the course works is that there'll be weekly reading and writing assignments that culminate in a full grant proposal. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But each week you start on the first section and turn that in for review. We do a peer review and you'll get my individualized feedback. The next week, you'll start working on section 2. Incorporate your feedback from section 1, and it just keeps going and building. And so by the time you get to the end of the course, you have a fabulous grant proposal that's been through 6, 7, 8 different rounds of edits. So the course covers not only writing the grant proposal, but kind of the full cycle of grant writing. So where do you find grants, prospect research? How do you know if an organization is ready to get a grant? Organizational readiness, and how do you position your organization to be ready for a grant. Proposal writing, that includes just really thinking through the strategy of how to approach and frame your grant proposal so that it's well received. Evaluation, all the metrics and data and community needs research that goes into the proposal. And then finally, we do also cover grants, a little bit of grants management, how to write grant reports, how to build relationships with grant makers, and ethics, kind of wraps up the whole series. So the final project, which is due on June 4th, is a grant proposal for, you get to choose the organization and you get to choose the project. So if you currently work for an organization, it's completely wonderful to choose the organization that you work for. I know in some other internships, they ask you to choose something different, but for this course, it's totally, completely fine to use the organization you work for. But everyone's going to fill out the same grant application form. So you're all working on different projects, different organizations, but we're all filling out the same exact form. And you will do online research. If you have to choose an organization to write your grant for, then I just encourage you to choose something that you feel really passionate about, whatever it is that moves you. Find an organization in the community that's doing that work. And then the course will give you guidance on how to approach that organization, how to do as much online research on that organization as you can. And then at about week 3 or 4, you can actually set up an interview with the organization, and I'll guide you through that process so you can get the information that is not available online to complete your proposal. So online research, interviewing the organization. But I do want to make clear that while you're writing a real grant proposal, it is a real grant proposal, it can't be submitted by you. It can only be submitted by the executive director or the head of the organization. So as grant writers, we don't have permission to just go out sending grant proposals out. It's only the head of the organization that has that permission. So if you're working with an organization and they love what you've written, absolutely, your grant could be submitted and it could receive an award. But if the organization decides for whatever reason, not to submit it, then the proposal wouldn't be submitted. One of the reasons why that happens is because most grant makers, the people that fund the grants, most only accept one application per grant cycle, so per 12 months. So if they've already submitted it to that specific funder, for example, or if they had a different plan for that funder, then they might not want to submit it right now. So earning the certificate, as I said, we have 8 Zoom meetings. So attendance at the video conferences, we do record them. So if you cannot attend a class or two, you'll be just asked to watch the recording and then write a short synopsis and email it to me about what was missed, just so that I know that you watched the recording and got that covered. Participation, so in the discussions and participating in the peer review. So each week I said that you'll send it to me and get my individualized feedback, but you'll also put it up for peer review. And so the way peer review works is that we all just share our work, and then you choose 2 people to read their work and give them feedback. We don't edit each other's work. We give feedback in terms of how you're reacting as a reader. So this made me feel confused. This was really exciting. I really loved what you did here. This was a great, powerful sentence, and so on. But you don't have to edit everybody else's writing, and your writing won't be edited except for pointers by me. The time commitment. So that's a big deal. And I want to make sure that everyone knows the time commitment is a minimum of 3 hours per week. So that's 1 hour of the Zoom meeting and 2 hours outside of the Zoom meeting doing the reading and the writing assignments. And that's minimum. So make sure that you take this course at a time when you can carve out 3 hours a week to succeed in this course. Earning the certificate means that you have to complete the entire grant proposal and that each section is accepted based on the rubric that's provided. Really, everyone will earn the certificate as long as you do the work and you do the writing. So let's see, can an owner and operator of a C Corp write a grant app to support local arts for their own company? Yeah. So there are not as many, but grants mostly go to nonprofit organizations and government entities because of the tax write-off that the person that's funding the grant gets when the money goes to a nonprofit or a government entity. There are grants that go to for-profit companies, and they go to supporting the economy, building the economy, so helping your business grow so that it stimulates the economy, increasing public art. Those are all wonderful causes that for-profit companies can get grants for. So here's the calendar. As I said, we begin on April 3rd. We meet once a week, except there's no class on April 24th. I'm going to be at a conference on that date, and so I won't be able to teach, but it will still be 8 weeks long. We'll just skip the week and keep going. You can kind of see the schedule and how we walk through, the welcome. We talk about logic models, how to write the organizational description. Then we write the community needs statement, which is where the research comes in, that is the why of the grant proposal. Week 4, we talk about developing the project budget and how to make the request for funding. And then we spend 2 weeks on the project description. That's the who, what, when, where, how of your grant proposal. It's the meat of it. And then we do the evaluation and then documentation and ethics. And then we don't have a Zoom on June 4th. You just get 1 more week to put the finishing touches on your writing and turn it in. Any questions so far? Will the course have a portion or resources dedicated to learning how to? Yes, I used to do it where I had the prospect research at the beginning of the course. And so we'd spend 3 weeks just going through prospect research, but it only left 5 weeks for writing. So the way I'm doing it now, and I think it works really well, is that each week when you learn a section, you also learn about a type of grant maker. So where you see Zoom number 2, logic models and organizational description, you learn prospect research strategy. Zoom number 3, where you do the community needs statement, you also learn about foundations. And then the next week is corporations, tribes, and then we get into government grants and federal grants. So that kind of gets interspersed each week. It gives you more time to write, which I have found to be really important. Having those extra few weeks really makes a difference.
I have a different type of question. So the organization I work for, they already have a grant writer. I think they actually have 2. So for me, doing an application for them, do you think that will have something to do with the other grant writers, or how should I approach that?
The way that I would approach it, I think, and Keith, you can jump in too, is I would first want to speak to whoever your supervisor is and let them know that with your own professional development, that this is a skill that you'd like to learn and that you're planning to enroll in this class. And then find out who would be the best contact if they want you to, for example, work directly with the grant writers that are already on staff, or how that would work for your specific organization.
Well, actually, they are the ones that are paying for the class.
Oh,
So, yeah, they are aware that I'm taking this, but I don't know how to, like, I don't want to overlap the other members of the organization. So I'll think about it and I'll talk to my manager about this too.
There's many components to grants. So maybe that you take the course, learn the nuts and bolts of how to do the grant, but maybe you can contribute to a piece of that grant if the other two grant writers are there. So you can still have some input on it and support them, but that might just be one idea.
when I come into an organization as a freelance grant writer, even if they already have grant writers, the first thing that I do is I ask to see the grant proposals that have been written before. And that kind of orients me to like, okay, here's the information that they're using right now, and now I can work on improving it. So that might be another strategy that you implement for that. So these are former students of mine. This is Nancy. She works at the Evergreen Goodwill of Northwest Washington, and she's the Grants and Communications Specialist. Right after taking the course, she was promoted to this position, Grants and Communications Specialist, within a month. A lot of students that I keep in touch with, they let me know that they receive promotions right away as a result of taking the class and gaining this really important skill. Annie worked for REWA, Refugee Women's Alliance in Seattle, and she said that after taking the course, she secured over $500,000 in grants in just 1 year, which is awesome. Hope is a biologist. She works for the Confederated Tribes of the Chehalis Reservation, and before she took the class, her department had never received grant funding. And then within 12 months, her department received over $274,000 in grants, which comprised 45% of her department's budget. And for her, that means that she gets to spend more time outside doing what she loves, which is being a biologist. And then I just have one more. This is Lee. She shared with me right after taking the class that she got her dream job. She got hired as a grant writing manager for the American Cancer Society. I'm going to show you some statistics, but grant writers are very high in demand. I think I just read the other day that there's currently 16,000 jobs available for grant writers in the market across the nation. Here are some grant professional facts. So this is a report that's done every year by grant writers in the field that volunteer to give information to the Grant Professionals Association. And so you can see the average salary is $77,000. It varies by job title. So anything from a grant writer to a grant specialist to a director of grants to a consultant, the salary ranges there. Grant writers say that they spend 41% of their time writing grants, 29% managing grants, and 30% on other administrative duties. So that's someone who's an employee grant writer. Most grant writers write 21 grants a year, and about 65% are awarded. 79% are employed full-time, 17% are consultants, and 5% are part-time. The demographics lean toward female. They weren't asking about non-binary on this survey yet, so that's not present here, but the average age is 48, but really all age ranges, kind of a pretty, I would say, even distribution in terms of age. 13% are early career, 40% mid-career, 47% advanced career, 29% have a bachelor's, 51% have a master's, and 16% have a doctorate. 55% are in urban areas, 33% in suburban, and 12% in rural. 25% work at nonprofits, 12% work at governments, 10% work at colleges and universities, 6% K through 12. So professional certifications. 74% of grant writers don't have any certification at all. So by getting your certificate in grant writing, you're already going to be standing out in the field. Having something that is an assessment-based certification means that someone has reviewed your writing and has assessed whether you have the skills of grant writing. So that's what this course is all about. 12% of individuals have what's called a GPC, and 5% have what's called a CFRE. So the GPC is the Grant Professional Certified. It's given out through the Grant Professional Certification Institute. And the CFRE is the Certified Fundraising Executive. Those are both credentials that you can work towards. You have to have 3 years of experience. You have to have won a certain number of grants, and you have to take a knowledge exam, and you have to have continuing education points. So this course actually, if you decide to go for those credentials later on in your career, this course counts for 24 points towards either one of those certifications. So CFRE is Certified Fundraising Executive. The difference between the two is the GPC focuses on writing grants, where the CFRE does event planning, major gifts, individual donations, so all types of fundraising. 8% have another certification, which is, for example, what this is. So a certification through a college like Western Washington University. Sean, great question. Grants 99% of the time cannot be used retroactively. So they never can pay off debt or pay for something that's already been done. They are grants that go towards the future, unfortunately. Does this certificate set people up to be a consultant after completion? Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to want to get more experience and more grants under your belt because that's something that people will ask for. They'll also want to see your writing portfolio. So this grant proposal that you're writing for the course will be a fantastic writing sample to put in your portfolio, and then you'll just want to build upon that. Technical requirements, some kind of word processing software, could be Microsoft Word. You're welcome to use Google Docs. We do use Zoom for the video conference app, so having a free account on Zoom. A webcam or a laptop with a camera is preferred, or you can certainly do the Zooms on your tablet or your smartphone. Be sure to get the Zoom app. And then I do recommend Grammarly for helping to edit your writing. It's a free account and it's a cloud-based editing software, and it just catches little errors. It's kind of like having your spell check turned on, but it's even better. It gives you a lot of feedback on your writing, and that way I can focus more on the content of what you're writing rather than seeing errors. So I use Grammarly all the time for everything that I do. I think it's fantastic. Do you use it, Keith?
Every day. I have the premium account, so yeah, I definitely use
Nice.
it.
It just catches those little errors. So anyway, if you haven't tried Grammarly, I do recommend it.
So we offer a no interest payment plan. So because of the time period we offer, you can split the payments between 2 payments essentially, right? So that provides you some flexibility. I know it can be, the course it does have an expense associated with it, and everybody's kind of at a different point. So I encourage you, if you definitely are wanting to take advantage of the course, we do have that option available for you, so you can kind of break up those payments. So the cost is for early bird is $1,310, and then the regular registration is $1,510.
So it's 2.4 CEUs, and as I mentioned before, it's also 24 points towards your GPC or your CFRE, and it's a non-credit course. All right, so we'll head back to questions, and I see there's a question in the chat. Is it possible to get grants to create a Washington Cannabis Commission? So grants can be used for legislative advocacy, but there are some rules about the way that the money can be spent. And I would have to reference an article or information that says specifically, you cannot use grant money to support a specific candidate. And you cannot use grant money to be for or against a specific bill, but you can use grant money to educate people and to advocate for causes in general. What is the deadline for the early bird registration?
The early bird registration, it closes on March 1st. And then scholarships, unfortunately, we have awarded all of our scholarships for this year. Our funds renew at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1 for us. So our next grant writing cohort, there'll be scholarships available. We're given limited resources for that, and we have to spread that across several programs. So apologies for that. Are there any questions maybe or concerns that we can maybe address while we're on the call here?
When is the next cohort? So after spring, it's going to be a little while. It's winter quarter, right?
Winter quarter of 2025.
So basically January 2025. You can't use tax dollars for ag commissions, only public and private grants and donations. Are there any other avenues for financial aids or grants?
I'm not sure because this is non-credit, so it doesn't kind of apply for the typical financial aid for credit-based programs.
I do know sometimes people who are connected to like a workforce training program sometimes can get the workforce training program to help cover some of the cost of certifications like this. I don't know much more beyond that though.
Yeah, and that's a good point to bring up because I was going to go to maybe the employer route. But this course is listed on the Washington State Career Bridge. So if anybody is working with workforce development or they have a coordinator, this program should be on our on the Career Bridge site. So.
Aiden, this course is set up for beginning grant writers. So we kind of start at the beginning and work pretty quickly through the beginning information. So it's also a great course for people who have experience writing grants and are ready for next level strategies. I've kind of carefully balanced the course so that it is applicable for both beginners as well as people who are more advanced at writing.
I have a question. I came to the US like 2 years ago, and this is my very first job. I have 2 years in this organization, but I do not have a master or any college education here in the US. So, do you think that getting this certificate will help me advance my career even though I don't have a master?
Absolutely. I mean, grant writers are in such high demand. What I find is that people who, for example, work for a nonprofit organization or a government entity that add this skill set to their repertoire are given advancement pretty quickly. So, I mean, that's my opinion. I don't have any statistics to back it up, but that's what I hear from students is that it really does help advance your career to have this skill set.
And just kind of broadly speaking about the programs that we have, our programs are kind of or more specialized and focused on a specific skill development that will help you become a knowledgeable subject matter expert on that topic, right? So grant writing is one of those ones that once you have that skill in your toolkit, corporate or higher education, nonprofit, all these different industries, it kind of opens those doors for you because it's a skill that, as the federal government or as entities, Bank of America, the banking, the refinery, like the oil companies as well, like have certain grant opportunities. So it lends itself broadly to kind of reach over across various different industries. So
it really does. Yeah. I like to say being a grant writer is like owning a truck. Everyone wants to be your best friend. Oh, wait, you're a grant writer? I need to talk to you.
this idea for a nonprofit.
Hey, say I want to become an independent grant writer for oil companies or universities or cannabis businesses. Can you do that? Or do you have to have a business license, an LLC, liability insurance, all that jazz?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you could be a sole proprietor. You don't have to be a LLC to be a grant writer, but you would definitely want to have professional liability insurance just to cover your assets in a worst case scenario. So I do encourage grant writers to just have at least professional liability insurance. Sometimes you might work with clients, especially government entities or large nonprofit organizations that require you to carry professional liability insurance.
What's a typical commission rate?
Oh, so grant writers don't work on commission. That's unethical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they work on the hourly?
Yeah, we work by the hour or we work by the project. What I typically see is when people are just starting off, they don't really have a feel for how many hours it's going to take to write a grant proposal. So they'll go by the hour at that point. But once you kind of get more experience doing it, it's nice to work by the project so that you don't have to track every single minute when you're writing a grant proposal. So a lot of times what I do when I'm working with a client, I'll get on, it's not really a retainer. It's more just like a contract, like a monthly contract that I'm going to do a certain amount of work for you every month at a certain rate. And so I get a flat fee per month per client. And then they know that I'm there for them to write the grants and we have a plan together of what I'm writing and what I'm doing. And that really works well for nonprofits because then there's no surprise bill that comes in. They know what they've purchased. And it really varies in terms of grant writers. If some grant writers only want to write the grant and then they want to walk away and they don't want to have anything else to do with it. Whereas other grant professionals do the grant reporting and help build the relationships with the grant makers and help the organization gain capacity. So it really just depends on what you like to do and how you want to help organizations, if you just want to write the grants or if you want to be more like a consultant.
Building relationships by pouring happiness is probably a good way to put it.
Be a slogan. Sierra, to answer your question, at this time we don't have kind of those wraparound services for job placement. But what I will say is that Allison has a vast network on LinkedIn. And once you complete the course and you have that on if you have a LinkedIn, If you don't, I would recommend setting up one. But you can put that on your LinkedIn and then connect with Allison, and in that association with the institution and with Allison as well has some validity to it, I would say, in this space.
Yeah, I get requests for grant writers. I don't contract out myself anymore as a grant writer. I just teach. So I get calls all the time for grant writers, and I just refer people out to my students. So it's not like a formalized program or anything like that. But just this week, one of my former students said, "Hey, I'm open for work." And the same week I got a call, I need a grant writer. So I connected them and they're off running. So Bianca, the max size of the cohort is 25, right, Keith?
It's 25, yeah. We hit that number in January, so.
So I actually have received a certificate from something that's called nonprofitready.org. Are you familiar with that website or page?
I'm not. But
Okay.
there's a lot of ones like that out there. So I kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it nearly seemed too easy to be taken seriously, I guess I would say. It was 4 hours, then I got a certificate in Grant Writing 101, and then I've seen a lot of other classes that gives these sort of certifications through like Udemy and Coursera and so forth.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, what would taking this course, how does that set you aside with receiving this course that's one, a lot more expensive? I don't know, it seems like it's kind of the same amount of time.
Yeah, so this course is 24 hours altogether. That's the 1 hour a week in the Zoom meetings, and then a minimum of 2 hours outside of the Zoom meeting doing writing and reading. What really sets this course apart is that you actually write a grant proposal that is assessed as you're writing it. And so the certification is only given to you if you complete the grant proposal and it meets the requirements of the rubrics, the kind of the score sheet that I've set up in the course. So every time you turn in your writing, which will be once a week, you'll get my individualized feedback. I'll actually read through what you're writing and let you know what you're doing well and what I see could use improvement. I've taught this course 1,000 different ways. I've taught it as a 1 hour course at a library, and what I found is that you really can't learn how to write grants unless you're actually writing grants and somebody's reading it that is a grant writing expert and can tell you, yes, you're doing this right or not. Because there are these just common pitfalls that people miss. And that's what we'll cover, is how to frame your grant proposal and the strategy that goes behind it so that when it gets read, it's successful.
And to add just one piece to that, I did a quick Google search on nonprofit ready, and like the first prompt that came up was, is it legit? The part that sets us apart from those other courses are going to be the standard. It is backed. It is a university issued certificate. So there is
Right, it's Western.
yeah, there's a bit of a standard that is in place, and not to be hierarchical, but that does set it apart from those courses that are just, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is most of the time. And the intensive amount of work is just an experience I've had working with Allison, that it will prepare you to be a true grant writer upon completion, right? You can kind of really hit the ground running on this. Some of the other programs might be different in their approach and their standards that they have. So
We asked, are we covering grant management, monitoring, reporting? Yes, we are. So we don't deep dive into grants management. That's kind of its own certification, a certification in grants management that is pretty in depth for being in compliance with federal grants. So we don't get that deep into grant management, but we do talk about how do you write a grant report? How do you build relationships? How do you, what's ethical in terms of protecting yourself as a grant writer, and then also like working with a team within an organization. Some grants management is covered, and also where to find grants is covered, prospect research. The bulk of the class is dedicated to proposal writing.
if there's no other questions, or not any at the top of your mind, any specific curriculum, you can definitely reach out to Allison. If there's questions about financing or registering for the program, feel free to contact me. Feel free to send us an email. We'll respond to you.
Yeah, if you have any more questions, let us know. Thanks so much.